Shabbat Shalom. I'm actually re-presenting my sermon from this past Shabbat since we had some technological difficulties, and I want to give you an opportunity to hear a little bit more Torah before we get to Rosh Hashanah. So this past week I spoke about Parshat Nitzavim-Vayelech, and it is a double parsha, but it's one that actually is not particularly extensive. It really discusses the Brit, the covenant, the connection between God and the people of Israel. And if we read Parshat Nitzavim-Vayelech, we discover in many ways that it's like an ethical will, especially the latter part of the parsha. Moshe is teaching people. He's reminding them what they need to do. And he also gives a vital lesson that is really challenging for all of us to hear, that Moshe's days are numbered, just like all of our own, that none of us will live forever. And yet, our community remains sacred. Our community remains strong, even as one generation goes to the next, Lador Vador. So as I was thinking about Moshe's leadership planning, Moshe telling the people what they need to do, they've received the Torah, now he's clarifying the mitzvot to make sure that when they enter the promised land, they really have everything they need. And what Moshe does is he teaches us the importance of succession, of leadership planning, and then those final mitzvot. And I have to say, for those of you Hamilton fans out there, I was thinking of George Washington singing One Last Time in the rhythm of Lin-Manuel Miranda. One last time, the people will hear from me one last time. And if we get this right, we're gonna teach them how to say goodbye, you and I. And it continues, if I say goodbye, the nation learns to move on. It outlives me when I'm gone. Like the scripture says, everyone shall sit under their own vine and fig tree, and no one shall make them afraid. They'll be safe in the nation we made. I want to sit under my own vine and fig tree, a moment alone in the shade, a home in this nation we've made, one last time. So in that song that Lin-Manuel Miranda took Washington's words and put them together again and created the musical farewell address, Washington shared a vision of America that didn't include him. And the same is true with Moshe. Moshe is giving the people a legacy, saying, you are going to the land of Israel. It's going to be okay, even without me. Washington and Moshe both share a vision for a nation that is a light unto all the others. And neither America or the Jewish people have one singular forever leader. We don't have a dictator. In America, we have elections, 3 co-equal branches of government that work to ensure the well-being of our nation. As Jews, we don't have a pope. We don't have a patriarch. We don't have a matriarch. We have God. And we have thousands of years of conversations, case law, and rabbis striving to serve God and the Jewish people. And in that way, Lador Vador, from generation to generation, the torch is passed. And we continue. So this was delivered on September 12th. So Friday was September 11th, and really a very challenging day for those who have connections to the Big Apple, or really America as a whole. In the history of our country, few days really shock us. Few days made us feel so vulnerable. Before the terrorist attacks on the World Trade Center, September 11th was just another day. It was an ordinary day right before Rosh Hashanah. It was the birthday of my Uncle Ira, my Uncle Freddie, my brother-in-law Jonathan. And yet, since since the Jewish calendar is on a 19-year cycle, and September 11th was 19 years ago, the Jewish dates and the secular dates match up. So we were 19 years ago, rabbis all across the country knew that Rosh Hashanah was a week away after September 11th. And they had to tear up their sermons and start all over again. And I think about my teacher, Rabbi Neil Gilman, and Rabbi Jason Miller, who called out to rabbis after the holidays and said, can you please send us your sermons? And at torahfromterror.blogspot.com, torahfromterror.blogspot.com, there was a huge database of sermons from across the country and across the world from rabbis who were trying to bring their message of hope in that time of fear, in that time of stress. And my colleagues were really incredible at bringing a beautiful message of Rosh Hashanah even in that challenging moment. And at this moment in time, we also find ourselves with a terrorist attack. But this time the enemy is not really foreign and it's not really domestic. We can't fight COVID with military force. We cannot eradicate it or kill people to get rid of it. It doesn't work that way. And COVID is a silent murderer. For some, it is asymptomatic, allowing people to unknowingly share it with others. And for some, the symptoms are mild and brief. And for them, they are fortunate. But for others, the recovery is not so quick. I know a number of COVID long haulers, including my own father, who remain with painful and debilitating symptoms months after quote-unquote recovery. In this country, we are almost to 200,000 attributed deaths, with many more people dying this year with unlabeled causes. The death rate this year is just significantly higher, and much of that is related to coronavirus. In the state of Florida, we've lost over 12,000 people to COVID. That's as if we had the September 11th attacks 4 times since March. So I want us to return to the Parsha and think about the choices that we make. Think about how we lead, think about how we follow, think about how we connect to God and one another. And Moshe said to us, standing there looking over to the Promised Land, that brit, that covenant of Sinai, V'lo itchem levadchem anochi koret et habrit hazot. I make this covenant with its rules and its sanctions, not with you alone. Ki et asher yishnu po imanu omed hayom lifnei Adonai Elohecha v'et asher enenu po imanu hayom. Those who are standing that day before the Lord our God, and with those who are not with us here that day. The not with us are us. We all argue, we all say we were standing together at Sinai, but I don't know if we were all standing with Moshe right before going to the Promised Land. And so God, speaking through Moshe, is saying, look, the covenant, the teachings, the Torah was not something just back in time, but it's something that reaches us all the way to 2020. Moshe teaches us that we're going to make mistakes, that we're going to have challenges, but in the end, it will be okay. When all these things befall you, the blessing and the curse that I have set before you, and you take them to heart amidst the various nations to which the Lord your God has banished you, and you return to the Lord your God, and you and your children heed God's command with all your heart and soul as I teach you this day, then God will restore your fortunes and take you back in love. God will bring you together again from all the peoples where God has scattered you. And even if your outcasts are at the ends of the world, from there the Lord your God will gather you, from there God will fetch you. And the Lord your God will bring you to the land that your fathers possessed, and you shall possess it. And God will make you more prosperous and more numerous than your fathers. And at that moment, Umal Adonai Elohecha et levavcha, God will open up your heart. But levav zarecha, the hearts of all your generations to come. Le'ahava, to love et Adonai Elohecha, to love your God. Bechol levavcha, o bechol nafshecha, with all your heart and all your soul. Leman chayecha, in order that you will live. So that sometimes we need to say things are going well in order to find our love for God, to find our connection. But truly, whether things are going good, going well, or going poorly, that brit, that covenant exists. And I have to say, even in the times of our ancestors, faith was a messy thing. Even the ones who saw the plagues, who crossed the sea, they didn't always see God's hand in it. They still doubted. They still had challenges. And I think for a lot of people, that's true today. But if we look at the world a little bit differently, we can see the presence of God within it. I see science and technology as blessings from God, most of the time. The tools that bring us together, we know, can also push us apart. So when we use them, we have to use them for good. Now, in this Parsha, Moshe teaches us that all of us, we can live a righteous life. The Torah is not in heaven, lo bashamayim hi, but it is here with us. It is not across the sea. It is here with us. And our Torah teaches that we have to be responsible for the health and well-being of our brothers and sisters, that we will live. And that means we have to use the science that's available to us and make choices. And sometimes it means we have to change our choices. It's not flip-flopping, but it's scientific progress. It's the way it works. As we learn, we grow. I don't want to be the same person I was when I was 10 years old. And I hope that in 10 years of being a rabbi, which we're just about there, at 20 years of being a rabbi, in 30 years, I will keep growing and learning and getting better and having a heart that is more open to all of us and a soul that is more open and that lets me connect to all of you and connect to God. You know, I think about my children and I think about myself. We're privileged to live in a world where parents don't worry about polio, rubella, diphtheria, mumps, most of the meningitises, or even the measles. As a child, I had the chickenpox. It was awful. It was terrible. It was itchy and painful, and my children will never have the chickenpox, God willing. They have the vaccine. And I hope, you know, in the days to come, we will see a vaccine and more effective treatments for coronavirus so that our children's children, our children should never have to experience what the world is experiencing right now. So I want to go back to Moshe and Washington. Both of them showed us that to plan for the future is to teach our children, to set that stage for the next generation. We all have work to do, not just for ourselves, but for the generations to come. And so as we go into Rosh Hashanah, I pray for a year of blessing for us all, health for all of us, and God willing, viable vaccines and treatments as soon as possible. So I wish you a Shabbat Shalom, and have a great day. See you on Rosh Hashanah.